there was basically a disagreement over the idea of picking a wide receiver and the fact that they didn't get out of draft weekend without a wide receiver. Do you think the Cowboys at all look at this past weekend and say that was a failure? Like, we should have still gotten a receiver, even though we feel good about things. That was a failure of the draft plan. We didn't end up getting that. Or do you think they say, no, it would have been reckless for us to take a receiver based on how our board fell?
Both. This is the running back situation from last year, right? Where they didn't get a running back, and everybody's saying, what are you doing? You didn't go get a running back, and then you signed Zeke, and, so they lamented that fact, the fact that they didn't get a runner after when they saw how the season played out, and now they're going to say, hey, we followed our board. The top 3 guys were all the highest rated dudes and all that kind of stuff. And then when the season plays out, if they don't add somebody else through a trade or add somebody in free agency, they're going to say, we probably should have got a wide receiver. Now, the one thing I will say, and I'm probably not saying anything you guys haven't said, is once you got to like 5th, 6th, 7th round, were any of those guys going to be better than Flournoy or Brooks or Tolbert or push anybody down the depth chart? They might be the same, but they're not going to push anybody down the depth chart. And I realize you can point out some guy that was taken somewhere that eventually proved to be better than what he was. But these guys, you follow your board. This is where they led you, and this is what they did. But I don't think they're done at receiver. I think they're going to get somebody.
Yeah, and so what is the approach in terms of adding to the receiver group then? Is it going to be a case where they're going to look at the free agent market? Are they going to call on trades? Is it going to be something where maybe similar to how they approached pass rusher last year, where they got to camp, waited to see what they had and waited to see what was available and then tried to make moves? How do you think they're going to approach it?
I think they would want to get something done sooner rather than later, and that doesn't mean this week, but certainly sooner than getting out to Oxnard when they added some guys. That was more out of desperation. They don't want to be desperate again in that respect. But yeah, the look in free agency. We've all talked about Amari's name and Keenan Allen and guys that are available, and then the trades. The possibility that Jerry kind of let loose before the draft that they're working on substantive deals to add some players before or after the draft. I'm sure that's being revisited. We know teams that might have surplus of receivers now based on what they've done in the draft, and maybe the Cowboys call them and see what they can work out. And we know that the Cowboys don't like their 4th round pick, so whoever they get, they'll get it for a 4th round pick.
Is that the, I was thinking the same question, like joking about that, but yeah, is that what we're looking at? Like a player that would have a return of a 4th rounder if they were going to trade? I mean,
yeah, it might be. Ultimately, I bet you that's what they hope it would be. I don't think they want to give up a top 3 pick because, they unless there's some certainty that comes with that player in terms of the contract that the player is currently on or the contract that they want to sign the player to. So it might be a situation where whoever they've targeted, they're able to talk to the agent before and say, hey, we're got this deal going with Team X. What are you guys looking for a contract extension? And they work something out that way. I think that's how they would like to approach it. And maybe it turns into a 4th round that turns into a 3rd round, or a 3rd round that turns into a 2nd round, or depending on how the guy plays here. I think they're kind of open to all avenues to acquire a number 2 receiver.
Todd Archer joined us here at 105 through the Fan. Were they close to moving back into the 1st round at all? Did you catch anything on that?
I did not hear anything on that. I heard it was all kind of quiet when I would reach out to guys in the draft moving back in, and every time I got a no. And even in the 4th round, I kind of thought they were going to do something, and that didn't happen. So I didn't get a sense that they were close to moving back into the 1st round.
Todd,
am I missing something? Is there something?
No, I was just curious. Yeah.
Todd,
Paxton Lynch was not able to go get in this draft, so they weren't looking to do that.
Done that.
Todd, I'm curious. When we talk about the Tet McMillan versus Tyler Booker discussion, a lot of people were upset that they didn't get McMillan. Obviously, I mean they didn't really have a choice, obviously. But when they look at that comparison right there, Do you think like I've gotten the sense Booker and McMillan were probably closer graded than I think people anticipate. Like it feels like a lot of fans I think thought, man, we're taking this huge drop to Booker now from McMillan. But I think they were graded at least somewhere similarly in the same ballpark to the point where they were just going to take the receiver because that was more of a need. But it's not like Booker was graded significantly different from where they have McMillan.
So this is where I come out with like the broadest grade, like that's a 1.543.
I would hope it's not a 1.54. That's a fifth rounder, Todd.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I believe Tyler Booker was their highest rated offensive lineman that they had entering the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So even the dudes that went above him, the Cowboys had Tyler Booker more highly rated. And we'll find out if they're right or wrong and how they evaluated and where they put their guys. We're going to find out when those guys get on the field. But if you're at the 12th pick and your highest rated player at X position is there, I don't think you can begrudge them making that move for quote a guard, as some people have. I mean, Quentin Nelson went 6th overall, I think, in 2018.
Yep.
I don't think the Colts have regretted that move once. Nor should they. And look, the next day when that kid came in for that press conference, and I'm not judging the pick by how he talked to us, man, that was impressive. Like, it was like, okay, now you see what they're getting and what they've done. And Shottenheimer is like 3 feet from me, and the entire time he's just like smiling with like confidence and just saying, see, this is what we were talking about with this kid. Look, in this mini camp, we're not going to find out anything either. We'll find out when we get to Oxnard. But everything you've heard about this guy has been impressive. Everything he has shown you to be in the little bit that we've been around him has been impressive. And again, I think when you look at where he was on their board, and let's say Golden or Abuka or Burden or whoever, their draft grades were probably not close at all to where he was on their board.
Todd Archer joining us from ESPN here on 105 through the Fan. Todd, when you talk about how impressive Tyler Booker was, and we've heard a lot about Ezeraku and his character and Ravel, do you think that portion of it right there is the Schottenheimer stamp on this draft? Like, is that a reflection of Schottenheimer's voice mattered in this process, or is that just it fell that way and was coincidental?
You know, Bobby, I'm reminded of a former head coach that was around the Dallas Football Cowboys for about 9 or 10 years, where he would say they're the right kind of guy.
Yeah. He told you that over a couple lemonades?
It was a couple of lemonades. He talked about strawberries and snakes and all that kind of stuff. I would say yes. I don't want to say that was Schottenheimer's influence about the character part of it, but he has talked about how character matters and changing the culture and doing all these things, which is what it's funny to me. Like, we're all like, yeah, look at Shotty go. Look at him cook. It's like Jason Garrett said the same stuff 10 years ago. Like, and I'm not saying it's wrong. And I'm not but we've heard this stuff before. There was one draft where I think they got a bunch of captains in it under Jason Garrett too. So I think Shotty's influence was continually telling the scouts, and he said it to us a couple of times, hey, you guys are the experts. Here's what we like and what we want, but you guys are the experts. And when you look at where the guys were, Booker was high on their board. Ezeraku was higher on their board. The guys that they got on day 3, I don't know if they have one guy that they picked in the 7th round that actually had a 7th round grade on him. So, I think his influence was being involved in the process and letting the scouts realize that, like, this is you guys. We're going to help you, but this isn't about us. This is about you. And it kind of led them to good character guys because he repeated that. So maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit, but I think the scouts and the people that I've talked to over there just appreciated the fact that he was in it the entire time and knew everybody, and the coaches that they brought in knew what they wanted and knew how to express their feelings about what they wanted to the scouts.
Todd, we heard a little bit of rumble, I guess, that Mike McCarthy had wanted a bigger say, I guess, if he had returned. And Brian Schottenheimer, when he got hired, the fan line was, oh, here's Jerry's puppet. But the idea, it seems like, is that I think one of the misnomers, at least from my perspective, I don't know about you, is that the Joneses want their coach involved. In they do give a lot of say and a lot of power over there. Like, for instance, I think McCarthy may have had more say than he even realized at times, or Schottenheimer, I don't think, was coming in here as any sort of a figure, because at the end of the day, the Joneses do want input from the head coach.
I've said this for a long time now to people who ask, and I always say the head coach has the most powerful voice in the organization if he chooses to use it. I mean, Chan Gailey wanted nothing to do with Randy Moss. They didn't draft Randy Moss. Like, this is, I mean, if you want to use your voice, you've got to put the work in and be involved and make sure you know what's going on. You can't just be kind of a toe dipper, as Parcells would call some running backs back in the day. You had to be all in.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jason Garrett was all in during his run here during the draft. And I think Shotty was as well. And but I think you're right, Bobby. I think the Jones, I'm going to say Steven, Jerry will acquiesce more to the coach more than people ever want to think he was. I've been covering this team since 2003, and there's probably, I can count on one hand how many times Jerry said, no, this is what we're doing, over the objections of the head coach, and doing it anyway. And Greg Hardy, T.O., and I'm going to leave somebody out that I'm not thinking of, but I got 3 other spots there that I could go because I only have 5 fingers. I don't have 6.
Well, I think, it was, if I remember right, didn't Bill want Spears over Ware at the time, or Merriman?
Yeah. No, it was to a degree. Although when people say that Bill didn't want Ware, I always remind them of the interview Ed Werder did with him 25 minutes after they picked Ware, and he compared him to Lawrence Taylor.
Right.
Bill Parcells, if he didn't want DeMarcus Ware, he wasn't going to compare him to Lawrence Taylor.
Fair. Todd Archer here, 105 to the Fan. If Vegas had them as a 7.5 on their win total, last year, if they were, obviously 7-win team last year, but they have Dak for the full season, how much better do you think they are right now than they were at the end of the season?
I think they're better because Dak is healthy, CD is healthy. Theoretically, Sam Williams is going to be playing. That should make them better. Dante Fowler's a better pass rusher. I realize they lost DeMarcus Lawrence, but he only played 4 games last year. I think they're better than what they were last year, but I don't know how much they've closed the gap on Philadelphia. And I'm not even going to go with Washington. I'm just going to say Philly because that's all that really matters. So that's why there's still work to do. I will say this. I think they will be a better team than we believe record-wise. So 7, I would take – I don't know if I'm supposed to do this. I would take the over on 7.5. But I don't know if it was 9.5. I don't know if I'd take that over.
Todd, you mentioned Dak being healthy. Is there obviously they always want to do anything they can to avoid injury, but do you think that this most recent injury and the fact that this has been cropping up a lot more in recent years, do you think the Cowboys have something in their head of like, hey, we got to have like some sort of plan in place to make sure that he's not overexerting himself and we're not putting ourselves in this situation where he's missing multiple games again?
I don't know how you do that at that position. There are other positions where you can do it. We've seen Zach Martin and Tyron Smith not really practice during the week and come out and play and play pretty well here a couple of years ago even. We've seen DeMarcus Lawrence, the same thing. I don't know how you can do that at quarterback necessarily because of the time involved and the need, but I think maybe it's in the offseason. Obviously, they're going to limit Dak because he's coming back from the surgery, even if he's going to be fine, and maybe a little bit in training camp. But he's going to be a guy who hadn't played a football game since, when was Atlanta? November 3rd or something like that. So he's going to need to get back into the rhythm of playing football again, and I think that's Dak's thing. Like, he's not a guy who can just come out and not play for a while and be great immediately. So I think they'll monitor him to a degree. But some of the injuries that he's had, it's like, okay, he busted his thumb on a dude's helmet, right? Like, how do you prevent that? The ankle injury, how do you prevent that other than say, please don't ever run again? Well, that's not realistic. And then the same thing with this hamstring deal. So some of it's not preventable. It's not like he's had a bunch of soft tissue injuries, and I'm not counting this hamstring as a soft tissue injury by any stretch, considering the muscle tore off the bone.